Hi, my name is Erika, and today I'll be presenting on my work assessing the impact of precocial males on population structure and genetic diversity in a naturally spawning population of Coho salmon. I'm sure most of us in Alaska are probably familiar with the concept of salmon hatcheries, but for those of us who aren't, they are facilities that raise salmon from the egg stage to the juvenile stage and then release them into the wild. And the purpose for this is to enhance harvests and support struggling populations because you're raising these salmon through this period of their life where in the wild they would have a really large chance of dying. But there are some consequences to raising hatchery fish, and one of those is that this can result in changing the genetic composition of these hatchery fish, which is a problem when those fish get the chance to mate with fish in the wild, because that can actually lower the survival and the amount of offspring that these wild fish are able to have. So to avoid this, the goal is to minimize changing the genetic composition of those hatchery fish. And theoretically, one way we can do that is by keeping the mating structure, so which pairs they select in the hatchery, similar to how that process is decided in the wild. But despite this, some hatcheries exclude jacks from their broodstock. And jacks are these small males that mature at a smaller size than regular full-size males. And the impact of excluding these fish is not really well characterized or well known. So the goal of my project is to explore two potential consequences of this exclusion. The first one being to determine the typical contribution that jacks have to the next generation in a natural mating system. And if it turns out that their contribution is large, then leaving them out of the hatchery broodstock would not really be representative of a natural mating structure, which is what we're trying to emulate. The second objective is to model the impact that excluding jacks has on genetic diversity. We care about this because populations with large reserves of genetic diversity stand a greater chance of surviving threats like climate change. So to do this, this study will capitalize on 11 years of data from a naturally spawning population of Coho here in Juneau, Alaska. And what's amazing is that we have access to almost every single adult that came back to spawn over 11 years, which is really giving us a rare opportunity to quantitatively examine an aspect of hatchery practices that hasn't been explored before. This is really important because we want to be managing hatcheries in a way that supports or at least does not harm wild populations. And the results from this study may inform a really key aspect of hatchery processes. So yeah, thank you so much for coming and listening to this today.